want to welcome you all. Um, I see in and among you so many people that I knew 45, 46, 47 years ago who have come, who have come to be with us today and listen and share today. And so many of you I have met just in these days that I've been here. It's just 1 week now. And I count you as already very special friends, where we share Bhagwan, a love of the Master in the same way. And in that sense, our brothers and sisters, almost no separation there. So it's odd for me to take this turn in how I'm going to speak about Bhagwan or Yogi Ramsuratkumar today. So often I've shared little stories, little moments, curious, some fantastic, some miraculous, some shocking and disarming, always a surprise. But if you'll, I'm going to talk about myself some this morning, this morning, and you'll have to just put up with it. I'm going to talk about myself only because the real miracles that I have witnessed are the miracles that I have lived with his blessings and guidance. And talking about myself, there's no one here, including me, who's very interested in myself. But it is an opportunity. It does give me an opportunity to express, to paint a picture of our interactions here and there, and some quite specific, some more general. But I thought today I would tell you a little bit about my story and how this remarkable relationship developed. To start with, I won't go too far back, but from the time I arrived in India in the spring of 1970, I was already in big trouble. I was already in a kind of spiritual crisis. I had had the blessing of being introduced to the writings of Ramana Maharshi in my very earliest stirrings of spiritual and Hindu interests. And in those early times, going overboard, kind of meditating my brains out, just sure that if I just meditated more and harder and longer, I could get enlightened really quick. And this was sort of course, nothing short of youthful folly, youthful ambition, not really very clear understanding of any true teaching. Nevertheless, I poured my heart into it, and I received so much grace, so many benedictions in my meditation. And on one occasion, late one night, when my ashram mates, my housemates, were all asleep, I was practicing then a method I had read. I didn't know how to really meditate, but I had read a chapter in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras where it advised focusing one's attention on the energy center between the eyes, or the eyebrows. And on this particular occasion, my attention just closed in, and then dropped in another level, and then dropped in another level, and then kept dropping in and coming to finally what I recognized was an infinitesimal point of consciousness, the so-called bindu. And in that moment, I knew it was impossible to go into the bindu without grace. And in the instant that I thought that the word or idea of grace arose in my mind, I was, from the other side of the bindu, pulled right through. And my whole inner being exploded into light, which I couldn't bear. It was so ecstatic and so blissful. Every atom of my being was infused with divine bliss. But I was quickly pulled back into this little body, and I couldn't handle it. But as wondrous as that was for a novice meditator, how could that ever happen? The problem started there. It was a gift, but it also became a great challenge. While my head, this light and energy had just exploded in my head, it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't close. It wouldn't retract. And I started having awful headaches, because I would feel these streams, these rivers, these flows of energy, and they would get all tied up. Well, I had to stop meditating, and my great ambition then was, I know this is going to, I am wounded, I've hurt myself, but there's no one, I don't know if on the entire continent of North America, much less my little college town, there was anyone who could have mended that injury. So I resolved to go to India. I would find someone there to help. And within some months, I was given money to go to India by dear friends and found my way. My one destination at that time was Sri Ramanashram, and friends in America and in Bombay ensured that I found my way. I finally arrived. And in the upcoming weeks then, I began to search for who is this person who can fix this damage. And I spoke with the senior, surviving, living disciples of Sri Bhagavan, Ramana Maharshi, and I'd I would address them by name and explain my sort of travail, my situation. And they'd say, "Ah, yes, you have to ask, who am I?" And I'd say, "I'm asking, who am I? I'm asking. But this energy won't stop." And they'd say, "Oh, you're not asking, who am I, quite right." So I'd puzzle over, how do you ask this question differently, or how do I relate to it differently? And I found no recourse, no help there. It wasn't until I overheard a conversation between Aruna, a French woman who had been living here for, I think, more than a decade, with a Swiss woman, and they together had been walking around the hill and behind the temple, Arunachaleshwar temple. They had encountered a yogi there who stopped them in the road and answered for the Swiss woman the pressing questions about her life problems that she had come to the East to find solutions for. And she was ecstatic. She was so thrilled, and she was due to leave the very next day. I never saw her again. But I approached Aruna. "Who is this yogi? I need to see this yogi. Can you direct me to this?" And that, in those days, they described him as a beggar dressed in rags and carrying some odd things. So she said, "Oh, him, you'll never find him unless he wants to find you. She said, "I don't even know how to find him. He just shows up sometimes in my life." But on the very next day, she was shopping for vegetables in just off Carr Street, and there he was. She encountered the master, and she explained that there was this young American hoping to meet with him about something, and arrangements were made for us to meet. Well, I have told the story of our first meeting and our second meeting. Those are amazing stories, captivating, but I'm afraid that more than half of you have heard me share it before. What I want to do at this point is kind of skip ahead, because after I met him those 2 times, he merely touched my body, he touched my head, and that energy problem just all smoothed out. There were no longer these blocks and obstructions. So I was okay, and he had rescued me, but he said I couldn't meditate anymore. I had to stop meditating. And living in an ashram and having come halfway around the world to do so, only to meditate, I was at a loss to imagine what I could do with all of my time. And so I would just, out of sheer boredom, I would walk down to Carr Street and begin to ask shopkeepers. I didn't even know his name yet. The village children, when I was with him, would jump up and down and pull on his clothing and laugh and giggle and tease him and shout Ram Ram and Ram Ram and Ram Ram, and such gaiety and such frolic, such happiness, even though they were tormenting him. He enjoyed them. So I would approach shopkeepers and ask, Ram Ram Swami, Ram Ram, and they'd say, Ram Ram, and they'd point here or there or direct to me. And eventually I found his favorite haunts, and to my surprise at that time, he didn't object to me hunting him and finding him and spending time with him. He kind of took me along on his routines through the days. From the very beginning, the first problem that came up was, I have a crappy memory, just the worst memory, and yet I was tagging along with this guy, this amazing human being who was saying and doing the most stunning, breathtaking things. And I would be so excited, but by the time hours or days had passed, I forgot it all. And so I began to want to take some notes. I thought, I can't, even though I know he doesn't want me to take notes, what else? I have to. And finally, I'm hauling out a pad of paper and a pen, and he says, "Mr. K, what are you doing?" And I'm saying, Swami, I just want to write down your words and keep them. I can't remember anything. I have such a horrible memory. And he said, no, it gets in the way. It's a distraction for you and for me as well. But the very next day I saw him again, and he said, "This beggar will let you keep notes if you never repeat anything to me and never ask questions about what I just said and never interrupt the connection we have." And I promised I would do my best. So right then began what finally became a mass of handwritten journals, a pile, boxes full of handwritten notes that became more and more a big question mark in my mind. Why am I keeping these? What are these for? Why does he let me do this? Where is this all going? The next sort of dilemma was within weeks, he confided in me some of the troubles that he was encountering in Tiruvannamalai that had to do with political tensions, North and South Indian political tensions. And so he asked me, he said if I would repeat the name of this beggar, his nama, that it would help him. And in those days, I would be so thrilled and happy and ecstatic in his company, I would promise him anything. It was great joy. Oh yes, Swami, I'll do that. But I tell you what happened, and that is within hours of being away or days passing, and I would find myself repeating the name Yogi Ramsuratkumar. I was filled with conflict, filled with doubts. I'm thinking, this isn't right. I know, even though I don't know much, I know that we can repeat the name of the avatars, Rama and Krishna, and the other avatars of bygone eras. And I know we can repeat the names of the various aspects of God. But is Yogi Ramsuratkumar, is it possible that, who is he? Is it permissible? Is it right? Well, should I be doing that? I would be full of questions like this. And so I began to really struggle with, who is he? And he would tell me that in coming decades, he was going to leave his name. He told me he would be famous far and wide. Countless, numberless, inestimable numbers of people would take his name. And you know, I just thought, okay, you're a beggar, you don't have a penny in your pocket, you have no teaching, you allow me to sort of tag along and you feed me tea and some snacks, and you're going to be super famous. And from time to time, I'd think, well, if he's going to get famous, I better get busy and help. So I would ask him if he would allow me to contact friends in the USA to help sponsor his journey west, where we could get tremendous media coverage, at least in spiritual circles. But he never expressed the slightest interest. He would always say, this beggar is never leaving the feet of Arunachala. So I really didn't know what he meant, and I really honestly had no clue, even of the faintest idea that when he was talking about leaving behind this gift of his name, that he actually meant his name. Not that he was going to be famous, but that his name would become a force in the world. So I spent some coming months struggling with this dilemma, and he asked me once, maybe 2 more times, if I would if I would take his name and remember his name to the Father. And each time I would leave him thrilled and so excited to do so. He would inspire me so much. He was saying the most shocking and mind-altering comments and statements. And of course, I was then writing them down. But it didn't help. I still saw him as a person. I couldn't see him. He didn't allow me, really, he didn't allow me to know his universal divine self yet. So months passed, and he began to talk about his mission to me. All of this transpiring in little shops here in town and in tea stalls. I think our most favorite meeting places were tea shops. Of course, I didn't really fully grasp the problem, that he had no place to call his own. He couldn't say, well, let's go back to my place and we'll talk. There was no my place. And even just nature call. We would journey out into the countryside. There were no public bathrooms to use. There was no place for him to change his clothing or to bathe in the regular sense. So he was telling me about his mission. And one day, I'd heard him speak about his mission, especially in regard to his love for Sri Aurobindo's vision of a united, spiritually united humanity. He was very allied, very his mission was that mission, his master Aurobindo's mission, in the way he spoke of it. And he was talking about it, and I became so thrilled. Oh, this is just breathtaking to hear him speak of this destiny, this future realm, this future humanity. And I left, and I was so uplifted that before I went to bed that night, I was thinking of him, and I was thinking of his mission, and I prayed that I too might give myself to that mission, that service, and that cause, and that purpose. I prayed that I could follow that way. Then, the very next morning, I sauntered into town. I found him at a little tea stall called Deserta's Tea House, or Deserata's tea shop. This was a really strange place. His guru was the tea shop owner. His guru was Pundi Swami. And the sign was all painted blue. The furniture was blue. The walls were all blue. The floor was blue. And then in this blueness was one picture on the wall of Pundi Swami there, across from the table, his guru. And this was the blue universe. This is Pundi Swami's place. And Ramsuratkumar liked to go there. And we often sat there. And the owner would allow us, we were never pressured to leave. On this occasion, I round the corner, and he's not in the tea shop. He's sitting outside the tea shop, and he rushes directly to me like a bolt, just so fast. And he takes my hand, and he holds my hand up into the sky, and we clasp. He instructs me to clasp my hands in salutation to the sun. And there, right in the middle of Carr Street, he has me saluting the sun, and in full voice, he is intonating the pledge that I made, that of course was made in the privacy of my meditation. And so he was saying how if sadhana is done for oneself only, it's no true sadhana. And he was saying that if one does sadhana for the world, it's in that way it is true sadhana. And there, standing, saluting the sun, he stated loudly, there's a crowd around us now. And he's completely ignoring the crowd. There's no private little shrine to go do this. So it's happening. And he says, victory to truth, victory to God, and victory to sacrifice. It was done. And then little did I know that really I had enrolled. I had joined his mission. I didn't see it coming, but usually if people came to him, you know, from other gurus, he would so honor those people. He would encourage them to stay with their guru. He would play with them. He would embrace them. He would encourage them. He would exalt their gurus. But in my case, I had prayed, after arriving here, I had prayed to Ramana Maharshi, who was my guru at that time. I had prayed, I had pleaded, I had cried at the samadhi of Ramana Maharshi to guide me to the feet of this mysterious yogi. And he had received me in the most miraculous ways. So he allowed me then to continue spending these precious times with him. By October, he was no longer hiding from me. He didn't talk about it much, very rare to talk about it, about the political oppression, the hostility, the threats that were constant through the day. And I would be sitting with him just like other friends who might be sitting with him, and we would see the I don't know what to call them. They were involved as a sort of, it was a very organized effort to try to get Yogi Ramsuratkumar to leave this place at any cost, to make life for him so burdensome that he would freely go. But of course we knew, us meaning people who were allowed to come near, we knew he wasn't going to go. And he was suffering this persecution. In some ways it was persecution. In other ways it was just constant pestering, constant interruptions. People walking right in, were talking, and people walking right in and standing there, not with anything to say. This kind of thing. So by October, he asked me if I would, late one night, we found our way to the far end of Carr Street, a little tea shop there called the Sundar Tea House, little yellow abode, so sweet. I love, my memories of India in those days are of India in its innocence, India so peaceful, so kind. And so we sat in this little, such sweet little place. The proprietor there was Hindi. He spoke Hindi. He welcomed Yogi Ramsuratkumar, and we were allowed to sit there many hours, even long past closing time. And on this occasion, he explained to me that he needed some friends, some few friends he would say, some friends who understand this beggar, which meant friends who knew he was a Mahatma and who would protect him. And he says, I only need some few. Once there are these few friends, everything will change. So I said, you know, I know you want this book, but are you sure I'm the person? I said to him, really, I have no talent as a writer. The only thing I've written are some book reports in middle school. And they were hopeless. I did so poorly in school. So I said, are you sure it's me? And he would assert emphatically that his father had looked at the people around and that I was the one. All right, okay, I give up, I'll do it, I'll do anything. He said, just a few pages, a small pamphlet. So that didn't transpire then. He dropped that subject, and I didn't hear of anything of it for some months. He sent me away to Adyar, Madras. He wanted me, he knew I was going to be staying in India quite some number of years, and he wanted me to find a place where I could stay healthy, where I would have some blend of East and West, and some comforts, not quite so fiery and intense as Tiruvannamalai. So I lived there. And as many of you know, it was in the spring of 1971 that I went from Adyar for the first time to find him here. He called me back by letters. I have all of those letters still. And we were to meet here. I searched for him for days. He was not in town. No one knew where he was. Even, he was not here. And I was, by pure grace, I met the one person who had just left and come here and laid down on the bunk in the sadhu's dormitory next to me to tell me he had just come from Tirukoilur and had the darshan of the most amazing, jovial beggar saint. And I'm thinking, no, that can only, those kind of words, that can only be one person. And you're lying down in the bed next to mine to tell me you just came from there. And I've been searching for days. And I'm thinking, this is a outrageous, inconceivable miracle. How could this even happen? He wasn't instructed to find me. So we left the next day, and it was then that in Tirukoilur that the book was initiated. We met, some miracles had transpired in Tirukoilur, the famous Periyar River miracle, in which he saved someone who was at risk of drowning. And there was great hubbub, talk and exaltation, celebration in Tirukoilur. The whole village knew what had happened. Anyway, we sat aside. I was told of the whole event. And then he said, today, this beggar, we're going to undertake the book. And he began to tell me stories. And his blessing for us was so powerful, even with his words, just his words. He was taking me into bliss states. I couldn't even hear him. It was like I couldn't even decipher his words at times. And then I wrote down some notes, and then we went to the temple, and there a homa, some ceremony was underway. I met Yanananda Giri, the saint there, the great yogi there. And he sat us down, the young man and myself, and I wasn't told what was going on, but it became clear as time passed. The master was focusing on me with laser intensity. And I had no idea what is this whole occasion. And I was never told. Years passed before I realized. Oh, and shortly, within weeks of finishing the homa, on the day the book was initiated, Yogi Ramsuratkumar instructed some devotees to undertake a yatra. all through South India to initiate this change from a beggar's invisible life to the manifestation of this grand mission. It was when I read about the yatra. Some friends sent me the Hindu newspaper article about it, and then I began to understand, oh, that moment, that ceremony, that yatra, the power of his voice to transform inward connections. This was the first nudge. This was like Buddha turning the wheel of Dharma, the first teaching, the first impulse to move this huge force that was going to create this unbelievable future of his name. And so I finished the book in 1971, brought the copies down from the printing house in spring of 72. The book began to be distributed. He loved that little book. It was so full of theosophy that after I wrote it, I thought, I've got to redo this. This is wrong. This is full of me. But it's got to be about you. But he wouldn't let me change a word. That we had read together that book, and he told me, he was emphatic that every word was written in the sky. He would use this expression. Every word is written in the sky. It cannot be changed. It's anyone who reads this book will be connected to these sacred words in the sky. They will be blessed. The book will do its work. And I'd say, Swami, but let me just take out some of the theosophy. No way. He would just repeat himself until I would shut up and stop this plea to change it. Well, time passed, and it wasn't long. The book had done marvels. He had his small coterie of friends being those who recognized his true identity and looked after him. But then I was back. I was faced again with this trouble. Who is he? Who is he to me? How can is he a fully self-realized master? You know, I couldn't know. Nobody else could tell me. Nobody else knew him. There was no gossip. There was no opinion. I was trying to figure it out, but there wasn't any established recognition of who he was. And I was, if you remember, so ambitious. I was young. I was 21 or something by then. And all I really wanted to do was meditate and meditate and meditate and get enlightened as quick as I could, and then go back home. I had an agenda. But he wouldn't let me. I couldn't meditate because I would have these energy problems. So right away, my path, my ambitions to achieve yogic advancement, no, I can't do that because I can't meditate. Do you understand the problem? Here I am, an aspiring yogi who can't meditate. It's quite a dilemma. And I was learning it had become clear to me what his path was. He always said, if someone asked him, what is the path to enlightenment or self-realization or moksha or whatever word we use, he would say, find a true master and serve that master. And I had been thrilled that I could serve him for that initial year or two. But I had now no work to serve him, no place to go to serve him. No, there was no way to advance this mission to serve him. I didn't have any steps I could take to fulfill that that conception of discipleship. And also, I knew that I couldn't repeat his name. I couldn't. I kept getting bound up and confused with this, like, is he Krishna? Is he Rama? Or is he just an amazing siddha with powers and sweet love for me? So I didn't know what to do, and I had been sent to Madras, and I began to drift back to my original ambitions, to find a teacher who could give me a teaching. Because Yogi Ramsuratkumar, he was more like, I like to say, more like my mother. He cared for me so dearly and would see to it that I had food, that I was sleeping well, that my health was good, that I had friends and a stable home in Madras. But I wanted to sit at the feet of someone like, in fact, exactly like Ramana Maharshi, on a tiger skin. Best if he's on a tiger skin. And if he has a fabulous story and teaching that interfaces with the Upanishads and the sacred books, because I want to dive into the Upanishads and the sacred books. And my teacher should guide me there. And that there should be steps, stages, kind of like in martial arts. You have white belt, green belt, orange belt, brown belt, black belt. Eventually I want a yoga black belt. So I looked, and eventually I had the amazing good fortune, or the most calamitous misfortune, it's hard to say, occasion to meet such a person with a splendid array of supernatural powers. Yeah, and willingness to take someone like me. He was a Vaishnava Brahmin, a very strict lineage, and yet willingness to take me with him to the sacred Vaishnava temples and to learn those scriptures, the teachings of Ramanujacharya. I spent a couple of years with him. But in the end, this teacher, I made horrible mistakes, and this teacher advanced and advanced, and I like to say, he used to say how in his meditations now, the devas are approaching his brilliance in the heaven worlds, to see who is this being of such brightness. And this was no exaggeration. This person really was going through attainments on attainments. But he had no guru. And his progress was self-willed, just like I wanted. I wanted a way to achieve this myself. He had a way to achieve it himself, and he became infatuated with his own, I don't know, almost unequaled splendor of light and knowledge and yogic powers. And at some point, this all, I can't tell you the whole story now, but it all came crashing down. Friends of mine involved with all of this were seriously hurt, and I realized that my destiny, if I go this way, is his destiny. This guru's path is the path I seem to have chosen, which would be achievement and more brightness, and then another sacred secret mantra, and another attainment, and then another secret and sacred mantra, and another attainment, and that it would never end, that there's no end to yogic attainment, that all he would be seeking is the admiration of the angels in the highest realms, and that I would be cursed, just as he is cursed, to strive forever to be better and better and better and better and bigger and brighter forever. And I realized I can't go that way. I have to stop. Yeah. So I had hurt myself, and I went back to the Guru, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, to fall at his feet and beg his forgiveness. He didn't scold me. He didn't criticize me. He took me back. And he blessed my return to the West. And I decided my ambitions are going to hurt people, hurt myself. I have to just go back, be a young man, go back to school, find a career, make a home, have a family, put my feet on the ground, and pray for grace, and not my own not engineer my own, so to speak, realization. So I went back. Oh, but before I did, Yogi Ramsuratkumar and I spent that last day in Tiruvannamalai together. We spent most of the morning at the temple tank. We spent some time at the punai tree for the very first time. The punai tree existed that I know of. And then we went by horse cart through town to a little cottage over here across from Ramanashram. I was staying there. And I fed him, I made tea for him, and we enjoyed some snacks. And I asked him, who is my guru? Are you my guru? And he said, no, this beggar is not your guru. Sri Anandamayi Ma is your guru. He knew I couldn't love him. He knew my heart was blocked. He knew I was confused. He knew I was struggling with this question. And he sent me to the one saint. He sent me to the one saint who I could totally love, only because even though I had spent time with her, I couldn't see any trace of a person there. She was a living, in my imagination and perception. She was a goddess on earth, and I could love her totally. And so he pushed me out of the nest to spend more and more time with her. And before leaving that day, he told me, "Mr. K, it doesn't matter in what far distant land you are, no matter when, no matter what, no matter why you might need this beggar's help, you can call this beggar." And this beggar promises you he will ask his father to answer your call, to meet this need. And right then, I was thinking, you're saying that, but can you really hear my thoughts if I am 1,000 miles distant? And I thought, I'm going to think of 3 questions in my mind right now. And he's chatting with me, he's drinking tea, and I think 3 questions in my own mind, which he can't know the answer to. And we continued to talk over chai. And finally, the day grew long and the sun was setting. It was getting dark outside. He was very reluctant to ever walk by himself in the dark along the roadsides because of this political dilemma. But he left. I saw him to the door. He took my hand, wished me all blessings, and left. And I was thinking, 3 questions. No. And I went back to clean up our tea and our little snacks, clean up. And I turn, and he just comes around and stands on the backside of the screen door to this little cottage. He doesn't open the door. He doesn't call my name. He just attracts my attention. I turn to face him. And he answers question 1, question 2, question 3 in the 1, 2, 3 order. And then he didn't even say another word like goodbye again or something. He just simply turned and left. And there was my answer. I was so floored. I realized that someone would be looking after me for all time. And he really has kept that promise. So then I went back to America and began to my health was ruined. My health was ruined. I had to, first off, seek recovery of my health. And among the very first resources were Chinese medicine and acupuncture. They helped me a lot. And I began to feel like, oh, if I pursue this line of work, I could stay healthy. I could help people. I could look after my own family and keep so many people from suffering, and even their little animals, their pets, I could look after them and their children. And I thought, this is a dharmic way. I feel really strongly called to follow. And so I spent some years pursuing my education, creating this career, developing a home, eventually getting married. When I finally met a good Catholic girl who knew nothing about India, but everything I said about India and my beloved teachers, and Advaita rang true to her. And I realized she was willing to walk any path with me, and so we undertook to walk this spiritual path together. And Kathy is my darling wife, and she has 2 grown-up children who are my children, and we're blessed by great love now. Many years passed. I went back. I drifted away from Yogi Ramsuratkumar back to my love of Advaita. And I came back to India a couple of times and was initiated by Nisargadatta Maharaj. If Ramana Maharshi couldn't be my living master, now long past, Nisargadatta was my second choice. And so I spent time with Nisargadatta Maharaj in Mumbai, and was blessed to have his direct initiation. And I'm thinking, oh, a great dream has come true. There is my way, the true way, the purest, most brilliant, lucid way of Advaita. I now have a teacher who can take me, who can show me, who can help me see. But I tell you, years passed, and I was growing older, and the satisfaction of coming to peace in those truths, those great, honorable, ancient Vedantic truths, eluded me. I spent every free moment contemplating them and resting in those truths, but they eluded me. And what's more, as I was getting older, past 50 years old, and then approaching 55, I realized I can't do this. I think that with my own effort, I can find my way. Even with the Guru's guidance, I can't do this. And I also realized that in my advancing years, I was becoming really clear about why. That I had come from a broken home, and lots of confusion and anger and fear in my little boyhood body carried so much anger and anxiety and fear around love. And that I struggled with my thoughts. I struggled with my addictions. And I couldn't rid them. I remember once in 1972 when this dilemma of finding who is Yogi Ramsuratkumar. I approached him. We spent the day together, but late, way late, must have been 1 o'clock. There wasn't another human stirring just in the metal bazaar. There was one little light bulb on the metal bazaar street. And I was sitting down, he was holding my hand on my lap, and I confessed to him. I said, Swami, I suffer so. My thoughts are not pure. This young person, ever since I can remember, I've been plagued with lust, the most impure thoughts. Please forgive me. And went on to tell him about the suffering in my family. Anyway, he was holding my hand and he was crying. I wanted him to know everything. If he was going to be my guru, I wanted him to know. So we got up from that place and walked just to the other side of the alleyway. There was another light there, and we could chat. And I said to him, this was my ploy, this was my calculated question. I'm thinking, this question, it will tell me who he is. I asked him, Swami, can you know everything? Such a silly question. Swami, can you know everything? Because in my little brain, the true guru can know everything. And he takes a step back and takes his beard in hand and he says, oh. And he's silent for a moment there. And then he says, yes, Mr. K. This beggar can know anything, everything. And then I said, even nuclear physics? Because I knew he didn't know nuclear physics, and I didn't know nuclear physics. But if we had a nuclear physics problem, he would be able to solve it. So without even smiling, he thought for a moment, he was quiet, and he said, yes, even nuclear physics. And then he said, if it is needed, he said, yes, this beggar can know even nuclear physics, if it is needed. That little addendum, that little added part stuck with me for all time. It will still, I still, because in my clinic work where I'm now a doctor, there are people who are suffering and I need to know how to help. And I don't know the answers to every disease. I don't know nuclear physics, and I don't even know advanced science of medicine of our time. But I remembered his remark that anything can be known if we call to the Father and it is needed. That can be given. And in these years of being a doctor, he has shown me that if I call to him when I needed his help and someone is suffering, that if I ask, he will tell me to the smallest detail. And little by little I realized that this voice, this ability to guide was his voice, the Guru's voice. And I was coming, as I was saying, to the end of my years and realizing that I had attained nothing. I had made for myself a good home and a very sweet family life, but spiritually I had achieved nothing. And then, it was then, as I was giving up hope, that the Master began to come to me in dreams. In 1993, when I last saw him, he had scolded me for my mistakes 20 years earlier. He exaggerated. I thought he exaggerated my errors, my poor judgment. And I wanted to argue, yes, you're kind of right, but no, it wasn't exactly like that. Can't you see my point of view, you know? But when he was scolding me, I knew I couldn't say a word. I was angry, I was hurt. I thought to myself, I'll never come back. If he really believes these things about me, I'll never come back. And in those last hours of my conversation with him that day, mostly as a witness because he wasn't really talking to me much, he told the story 3 times, in each a different person, a different circumstance, that someone had asked when he was in attendance of Ramana Maharshi, that someone had asked the Maharshi, if one's guru passes, should one find a new guru, a living guru? And Maharshi, Ramana Maharshi, was paused for a moment and then said, no new guru is needed. The guru never dies. And he said this to me in my company 3 times. Of course, I was still in my mid-40s. I had no idea I was facing eventually his death and of course my own as we age. But I was now coming to the end of my life and he had passed. And I had fallen far, far out of his orbit. But in those faltering days, feeling like I had failed him, I had failed our relationship, I had failed to us in all of my aspirations, he began to appear to me. First, I would find myself in the bazaar here in Tiruvannamalai, searching everywhere, here and there, all our old places, but most of them are gone. I don't recognize our old haunts. The tea shops are gone. I look everywhere, but eventually I find him. And we spent sweet moments together, just like old times, so forgiving of me and loving me in no way that I could deserve. And 2 times, then 3 times, and 4 times more, I meet him in the bazaar, and thankfully I'm able to find him. And he welcomes me to sit with him until he says something or he touches me, and then bam, I'm right back and I wake up. And I know I was in his presence. I could feel the magnetism of his amazing presence. And I write all these down. And then the next dreams are where we are on the road between India and my home. And then finally, subsequent dreams start to occur where now I meet him in my front yard. He has come to my home. And I turn and there he is standing in the adjacent walkway, and I can't believe it. And my heart is pounding, my mind is spinning. It's really him. I approach as he turns to face me, and I'm so overwhelmed, my knees won't hold me, and I fall at his feet. And I'm overcome with his sweet presence, his love. Wake up out of that. I can't bear all of that energy. And then the next is at my back door. The next is on my birthday of 2008. I wake up in a dream and my home is haunted by a bizarre twilight, and I'm thinking something's wrong, something's going to happen. What is this? And I look out the front door and I see 2 pilgrims who are standing, 2 Indian people standing, talking and pointing down the driveway to the back of my house. And I think, oh, they're talking about something at the back of my house. So I turn around and start to walk to the back of my house. And already as I take a few strides, I can feel someone is there. What is going on? Someone is there. And I come to the door and I take a look just to the left of the door, and it is he. And the moment I recognize him, a wave of energy, just like it was 10,000 tons of a rolling wave from the ocean, comes right over me and knocks me down right at his feet. I can't breathe. I can't move. I'm crushed by this force. And I turn up to him and reach for his help. I reach up for his help, and he reaches down and touches my hand. And then, bam, the whole world, the universe disappears, and I'm left in a dark womb of peace. I thought, oh, this is nice. This is kind of nice. But as I look up, I see, in fact, I'm moving. I can't feel wind. I can't see any objects, but I am jetting at the speed of thought. It could have been light years in seconds to the spiritual hub of the universe. And there in a great arc of the self, of the I am pure self, I alight. I realize this is heaven. This is the origin of me. This is the purity of me. This is pure love. There is no separation here. And then it occurred to me, not only is all of that true, but there's something else, and that is a longing in this heaven world. Myself, my pure soul, has an eternal longing, a bhava, a mood, incomplete for all time, to find him, to search and to find him. And in that second, I knew it is him. It is him who is my guru for all time. And then I woke up. From that time on, by his grace, he has come to me in numberless dreams to teach me, to comfort me so sweetly. And he blesses my family and my work. He's present when I teach. He's present when I work on patients. He's present in my home, especially if I will simply remember him. So my whole life is filled with him. So I've come to this place where I am blessed. I never did anything to deserve it. I made so many mistakes, so much disrespect, but he forgave me. And I'm so often reminded of his work. Oh, the most precious remarks. Sometimes people, while we were sitting having tea, someone would sit with us. Close friend or distant acquaintance. And they would stammer or catch themselves saying how they suffer and how they long to find liberation in this life, and that Bhagwan Ramana will afford them by his grace, grace and guidance and liberation in this life. And then they would catch themselves and they would say, "Oh, Swami, forgive me for saying that. This is not, this, you wouldn't understand. You now are free. You're liberated. You don't have this anguish and these struggles." And Bhagwan, Yogi Ramsuratkumar, he would always say, this beggar is always coming back. There will never be a time when this beggar will step off this wheel of samsara. He will always be coming back. And he will always, as long as there is even one person who can be blessed by this beggar or benefited by this beggar will be coming back. In those days, I didn't really understand the magnitude of a being who now I understand, mostly using the Buddhist concept of a bodhisattva, someone who out of selfless love keeps coming back for all time, who has vowed to look after anyone who calls for help. That there are, in those days I saw, the guru I want is the guru sitting on the tiger skin with the sublime teaching and the way for me to advance. But now I understand that the guru I needed wasn't the guru I wanted. The guru I needed could see my inner wounds, the broken part of me. You know, I spent time in the company of a Sian, almost unequaled master of Advaita, Nisargadatta Maharaj. I spent time in the saintly company, so pure and heavenly, of Ma Anandamai, but I failed to find any resolution, any comfort. I was tortured still by impure thoughts, addictive, impure thoughts. I was so ashamed. I wanted to only hide those things. But I understand now who Yogi Ramsuratkumar is. He came here to do work. He didn't come, each great saint and seer has some divine mission, even those who say nothing or who don't even move. But Yogi Ramsuratkumar, with every breath, with everything he touched, everything he did was ultimately to enable this power that indwelled in his body. Every atom of his body was a fire, was lighted with fire, and he couldn't touch anything without it becoming a blessed object. Even string and twigs, wrappings, he couldn't even dispense with them or throw them away. He had to stuff his pockets with them. They were sacred objects. And he would give these to whomever would put up with him, to hand them to these people. So it took me a long time to understand how sacred is this being whose only purpose, however enigmatic and bizarre and odd and puzzling and frustrating he was, everything was blessed and blessing, and maybe a 1 in 10,000 year advent of a bodhisattva of this caliber finding his way to this dark world where there is so much suffering. And looking, and also, you know, to have the capacity, not only to the will and the longing to, and the motive to descend with love and healing, but the capacity to hear every single being's call who calls to him, and to answer it in their time and in their circumstance, in their own way. Yeah, now I know. And for me, like so many of you, I'm so blessed to have been brought back, to meet you all, those of you farther along in your relationship and your recognition of Bhagwan's love and care for you. The miracles in your lives, way past these short years that I've been blessed in this way. I'm so grateful to be meeting you and to see Bhagwan's work, the Master's love and joy and dedication to each of us. Yeah, his love for us, it won't stop. So, like that, I wanted to share with you just my story. Forgive me for talking about myself in this way, but it's this way that I feel like I can express how the real miracle for my life wasn't his countless miracles that I witnessed and that all of you have witnessed. It's the miracle of transformation of heart, of a wounded soul, very lost, with no hope, having ruined every path, everything, and not being forsaken because of my irreverence and my denial of him and those errors, those errors. So I feel, you know, I've gone from being a nirguna bhakta to a saguna bhakta. I love God. I'm so blessed to see God in form. And from Jnana Yoga or Raja Yoga now to Bhakti Yoga. I couldn't even imagine. I had, spare me Bhakti Yoga. It was impossible for me. I didn't want to hear anything about it. I couldn't go there. But Bhagwan has made it possible, where that's the only thing I want, is to love more, to love him more. And I know that's a feeling you share. So those were some of the stories of Yogi Ramsuratkumar I wanted to share. Thank you all. And I look forward to meeting you. Om Yogi Ramsuratkumar Jaya Guru Raya.